It's 7 o'clock on Wednesday, June 26th, and I will call the zoning board of appeals to order. We've switched the order on the posted agenda, that we're gonna do 9 Bennett Street first and then 35 School, because the attorney for 9 Bennett Street is double booked with Ipswich today.
It happens.
So both 35 School and 9 Bennett are continued public hearings. John Benares was at the last public hearing. Jim Dietrich was not, but Jim Dietrich has watched the video for 9 Bennett. And then for 21 Union, Brian will be recusing himself, so Jim will be sitting in on that application. With that, as I did at the last public hearing, I am recusing myself from 9 Bennett Street because I am a direct butter that's impacted by the variance. I will be speaking as a resident, and Catherine Howe will be conducting this portion of the meeting. And I will move myself to a chair. No, I have to be unmuted.
Okay, good. All right,
And I think Mr. Dewar is
just
going to
making
speak.
sure that we're all good on
I
Zoom.
think Mr.
Okay,
Dewar is going to speak.
that's fine. Let me just open the hearing.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and open the continued public hearing for the application of Jill M. Ryankowski Doyle and Timothy P. Doyle for a special permit under sections 5.4, 7.2, and 12.5 of the zoning bylaw and/or other relief as may be necessary to decrease the current encroachment into the front setback and extend the current encroachment into the east side setback, and a variance under sections 5.4 and 12.33 of the zoning bylaw and/or other relief as may be necessary for an encroachment into the west setback at 9 Bennett Street. Assessors map number 28, lot number 10, District A, filed with the town clerk on April 22nd, 2024. As Chairwoman Milish just indicated, John Benares, who heard the first part of this application, is not present at tonight's meeting. However, Jim Dietrich has listened to the full audio of the prior arguments and will be hearing tonight's arguments and voting on this application. Is there someone here to present for the applicant?
Yes.
Your name for the record, please.
I'm Tim Doyle. I'm the homeowner.
Thank you.
Do I have permission to share my screen?
Yes.
So, as mentioned, I'm the homeowner, and I'm joined tonight by our attorney, Bill Heaney, who's available on Zoom, our architect, Craig Bosworth, who you heard present last time, and most importantly, my wife, Jill, who's joining us on Zoom from Annapolis, Maryland. So last month, you heard our attorney, Bill Heaney, speak in depth about the elements of both the variance and the hardships, speaking particularly about the lot. It's a non-conforming lot. It's significantly sloping left to right and front to back. It has a significant amount of ledge on it, really rendering only about the front third of the lot buildable. Before I talk about the changes that were made in the last meeting, I wanted to give the committee the chance to see if you had any additional questions or wanted a summary of the hardship from Bill, or had any additional questions.
Board members, anyone have anything? I don't, from rereading everything. Does anyone else have anything at this time before the application? No? Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, great. So last month, obviously we heard your feedback and you'll see the changes that were made. But the primary feedback that we took and made changes to was, in general, we were over on lot coverage and over on lot coverage plus impervious. And Catherine, I think you made the comment, you don't have a hardship to justify as big of a house as you want to build. And then, once we got past, everybody, there were several committee members honed in on the screen porch. You heard Kurt and Donna speak about their concerns. In general, they thought the screen porch was too big and that it was too close to the fence. Then lastly, there was discussion about can we modify or consider modifying the concrete driveway because of a lot of the runoff concerns that neighbors have on Bennett Street, as well as can we either eliminate or reconfigure the bulkhead on the side of the house again because of how close it is to our abutting neighbors, Kurt and Donna. So based on that, I'm gonna kind of walk you through in general the changes that we made. I'll then show you how the changes to the house sit on the site survey. And I'll throw it over to Craig to give you a little bit more of a detailed look at the updated plan. But in general, we kind of made the house smaller. It's roughly 2 feet narrower than it was before. It's also, the garage is 1 feet narrower in depth. We also, you'll see in the photo, pretty much, we didn't eliminate the front porch, but we reduced the size of the front porch considerably, making primarily just the front porch cover over the front steps. The biggest change you'll see is we reduced the screen porch, both the size of it, we made it 6 feet smaller. So on the original plan, it was 10 by 20, it's now 10 by 14. We also moved the screen porch over, indented it, so it now sits roughly 12 feet from the fence. It was before, it was 5 feet from the fence. And I think that gets to a lot of the concerns that were raised in general by you folks as well as by Kurt and Donna regarding noise and site mitigation, having it so close to the fence. The other thing is, we're gonna build it on piers as opposed to building on a slab. And that will absolutely address, again, some of the concerns Kurt and Donna raised regarding the trees and the roots that are in our yard. Roots of their trees, I should say. We also are going to make the front driveway partly pervious. We have committed to roughly 25% pervious, and that's again in response to both concerns about runoff as well as getting a coverage ratio. We don't know as of yet what that's going to look like. We're just committing to 25% pervious. And then as you'll see in the drawing, we changed and went from a bulkhead versus a walkout. And we rotated it 90 degrees. So the walkout is narrow in scope and much closer to the house. And the net result of that is it significantly increases the relief on the right side, or Kurt and Donna's house. As you'll see in the next slide, the relief is much greater than what's currently there today. So any questions on this?
Not so far. Anyone?
I'm fine.
Okay, so this is the updated site plan. I hope you can all see it. It's harder to appreciate without seeing the last one, but I'll give you the highlights. The proposed structure now sits almost 4 feet further back than the current house sits. And for those of you who know the red house, it sits very close to the road. But it further increases the relief to 7 Bennett Street. You'll now see we're almost 14 feet away at the front of the house from the property line. And obviously they're a couple of feet off the property line, as well as 12 feet in at the back of the house to the screen porch. And the key thing to know, this is Kurt and Donna's house here. You can see how much further back. So from the standpoint of the amount of sunlight that their house will get, it's actually going to be increased now because of the way that the house is situated. The abutting neighbors, to include Sarah, will also get an improved sight lines because of the way that we've pushed the house back. Sarah kind of looking towards Town Hall, looking up at the school. We're converting, I'm going to restate some of the things you said last month. We're taking what was a 2-family house and building a 1-family house. We only have 1 child, although we do have older children, but essentially there won't be as much of a parking issue. Additionally, because with the driveway, we'll be able to fit 4 cars on the driveway as well as 2 within the garage. And probably the biggest thing, and you'll see this more clearly in the next slide, this design now gets us in compliance with both lot coverage for structure and lot coverage. In fact, below the maximum of lot coverage for structure and impervious. Any questions?
Any questions so far, members of the board?
I'm
No,
just
we're
okay.
good. Thank you. You're doing a great job.
So this, you saw this spreadsheet last time, and this really kind of lays out the key metrics that roll into our coverage ratios. So you've got the existing conditions of the current house, what we presented last month, and most importantly, what the updated conditions are. And I've highlighted the most important metrics I think are there. The gross square foot of the house that we proposed last month was 2,287 square feet. It's now down to 1,981, almost a 14% decrease in size. Additionally, as I mentioned, the house sits even further back than it did before. What used to be just shy of 26, now it's just over 26 feet. The setback on the right side, or abutting 7 feet, abutting 7 went from 11.4 to 13.8 feet. We kept the setback the same on Sarah's side. Essentially, we anchored the existing setback there, so all the relief that we got was on the left side. Nothing changed in terms of front to us at the rear setbacks or the height of the house. The elevation of the house is identical to what we presented before. So the net result of this is it gets the coverage by structure down to 15%, coverage by structure impervious below 30 to 28. Any questions before I pivot to showing you renderings of the house? Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple of slides here. Existing structures on the left, and this is what we proposed last month. I think you can get a visual of how much bigger this house is compared to what's there today, and that was noted by several of the members. So if you overlay the updated structure to the proposed structure, it's not dramatically different in size. We kind of just squished it a little bit, like I said, 2 feet, left to right, side to side. And the garage is a foot narrower. But here's where you can see there used to be a front porch here. There's no front porch here. What you can't see on here, but you'll see when Craig, our architect, shows you is the walkout is on the left side, but it's been rotated 90 degrees. In the back of the house, you'll see when Craig, I turn over to Craig, the screen porch is indented and smaller. So let me pause here unless there were additional questions, and I'll throw it over to Craig, architect, who can give you a little bit more of a detailed guide.
Proceed, thank you.
How do I do that?
It should be all set.
You need to
I need to
close
stop
your
sharing.
screen. Yeah, stop sharing, and he should be able to share.
Okay. Okay, should be able to see my screen here.
Yep.
Thank you, Tim. That was great. We have some existing condition floor plans and elevations that were part of the packet. What I'd like to do is just, you're going to see our original proposal and the new proposal tonight. So this is the basement floor plan. There are a lot of little pushes and pulls that happen as we had to sculpt out and steal some of the space. So where you might see 36 feet 5 inches is reduced, so the garage might be reduced. But probably the bigger thing to pick up from this floor plan is literally we had a bulkhead here in this location. We've changed that now to just an open areaway, keeping again it tight to the adjacent house, just giving us access for mechanicals and things like that to gain access to the basement. By doing such, obviously we've increased the setback distance to that areaway. The first floor probably has a bigger change. This is what was originally proposed. We did have this larger covered porch, and again, the larger screen porch in the back. These two porches are really a bulk of the square foot area that we reduced by. You can see the original bulkhead here projecting out towards the right-hand setback that I just represented that areaway. Our proposal here tonight is that we reduce the screen porch. It's now 14 by 10. And again, I think as Tim mentioned, we're about 12 feet off of the property line to this edge of our proposed screen porch now. In doing so, again, the footprint shrinks. Area, if you look at it, there'll be places where I've pulled in a foot or 6 inches and things of that nature, because we did have to come up with just over 300 square feet to be compliant with coverage. Again, that front porch is now eliminated. The only covered porch we have, a couple columns here, is for part of the entry portico. It gives us basically a larger planting area, I suppose. The second floor, again, not a whole lot you're going to see that has changed here, except for the elimination of kind of covered roof of the porch and the back porch. You'll see it has changed. There are dimensions that changed, cantilevers and things like that. The inches and feet I had to pull out of it do make a difference to the second floor, and it's represented here. It is slightly smaller. The program is essentially the same. Maybe a couple little hardships to make this diagram kind of tweak and work and make bedroom sizes and things like that work, but we were able to make that happen. As represented, I think Tim had mentioned the front elevation where we did have the original kind of front porch. Things again tweaked down. You'll probably, again, this is the back kind of screen porch that you'll see in this is the side elevation. A couple of cantilevers off the back and front were massaged in this exercise. The elimination of that porch, gives us that planting bed, but buys us some of that square foot area. Dormers slightly adjusted, cantilevers slightly adjusted. You see in the porch beyond, it goes to basically a very simple gable roof at this point in time because it's smaller. The rear elevation, again, this is what we proposed. And the other side elevation, you're not going to see a dramatic change here other than the bulkhead goes to areaway, but this is your screen porch, which once was really very close to the edge of the house. Now is our proposal. We pulled that in. We've dramatically reduced that. Some of the, the organization of my dormers, I had to slide this over to make the composition work. You're seeing a little bit of that balance as I had to tweak the diagram down, but in essence, that represents our diagram here tonight that buys us the compliancy with coverage. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Questions from the board on the new design?
I'm cool.
No questions.
No, it's good. No questions.
Okay. If there are no questions at this time, are you finished with your presentation? Just a minute. Are you finished with your presentation, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. I'd like to open this for public comment at this time. If you're a member of the public that wishes to comment in this room, please raise your hand. Yes, sir, please state your name and address for
Jim
the record.
Gates, 2 Desmond Avenue.
Mhm.
I've got vested interest in this particular presentation because it affects on another one that I'm also interested in tonight. Is that property within the 200 foot of the harbor? And so do we have elevation control lines for the property?
Honestly, I'm not familiar with that 200-foot harbor.
I don't know the answer. Are you
I don't
within
think we
200
are.
feet of the harbor?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
Likely not, within 200 feet of the harbor. I think that would be kind of shocking. I've done a site
I wish we
visit.
were.
I'm not really good at estimating things, but I expect you're not. Are there further questions, sir?
To follow on, well, if it is, you will have to go to the Concom.
It's not.
Right, that's fine.
It's relevant, it's not.
Any Concom approvals would come after this. They are required to go to Concom for any necessary approvals they might need, anything related to their adjacency to the water or anything else after our hearing. Go ahead.
Further, on the interior space, have consideration been given to the laws and regulations on habitable space, particularly for bedrooms and the living quarters as a whole? And that is something else that really knocking down interior walls and building new walls does come into effect as a limiting minimum, and depends on the number of bedrooms as well. The other is the absolute elevation above the main level now of the building as it sits, which is the governing for the height when you're finished.
So,
Is that the end of your comments, sir?
He's
finished.
Okay, just a minute. I'll recognize you in a minute. Members of the board?
Well, I didn't understand a word that Mr. Gates said. So it's very difficult to hear you, Mr. Gates. I just don't know what your point is.
That's okay. If Rob heard, let him
Yeah, let me
respond.
take this one.
Yeah, good.
So this is a brand new house, and all the considerations, I believe, for a single family residency have been taken. And the size of the house with 200 square feet per residency, per resident, I believe is covered in the size of this.
Even if it's not, I don't think it's in our jurisdiction. It's not
Yeah,
something we generally
but just by
consider.
looking at this, I think that it's covered.
Agreed. Anyone else want to address Mr. Gates' comments on the board?
No, I just think that, while I appreciate what he has to say, I don't think that,
May I add-
we're
may I
here
say
for,
something?
No, not right now. I'll call on you. Just a minute, please.
we're here for, relief setbacks. and
Zoning.
for- The interior of the building really doesn't, I don't think that's,
Yeah,
it's our purview anyway.
Right.
But
So
the living space.
we appreciate your comments, Mr. Gates. We will, if it is within 200 feet of the harbor, I'm sure the applicants will address any necessary issues. We can put that in as a condition, even if they would agree to that. The interior space is actually not within our purview or jurisdiction on the zoning board. It's not something we address here. It's something that would probably be related to an occupancy permit situation, whether they would grant that or not with the spaces. So I've heard your concerns. I appreciate them. The board will consider them. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard? Yes, ma'am. Name and address,
Beverly
please.
Gates, Desmond and School Street.
Yeah.
Timothy's wife.
Yeah.
I don't agree with him.
Okay.
I think that house, I'm very aware, his mother many years ago had renovated to restore it. And it has nothing to do with the water because it's even high. And it has a lot of land behind it that is a lot higher. So it doesn't intrude with anyone, I think. And I think that the whole thing on our side is negative review.
You have no objection? Okay, thank you. Any other member of the public in this room? Yes, Sarah?
Sarah Mellish, 11 Bennett Street. I'm thankful that the applicants decreased the coverage to meet the requirements. I think that this house dates back 1700s, as does the greenhouse at 7 Bennett next door. They were built very close together. I spoke to the Doyles, and when they shrank the size of the house, they asked me if they could leave the line of the proposed house in my setback as they had originally proposed, and I said yes, that I supported the variance because the height of my house is about 25 or 30 feet higher than their house, so the fact that it's closer to my line really doesn't impact me because I'm looking up over the house, and I have lots of room on my side, and the room on my side is all ledge, so it's not buildable. So I support this application.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other comments in the room? Yes, sir.
Kurt Spitaka, 7 Bennett Street.
Yeah.
Speaking for Donna and I, we appreciate everything the board's done to review this from the past time to this time. We appreciate the changes the Doyles have made. The only comment I'd make, and this is maybe more to Tim than anybody is, we just want to work together on mitigation of damage to trees during construction. And also, I guess we don't know the process for ledge removal and all that, and how that might impact the structure of our house or potential drainage issue changes based on that. So it's,
Any other comments in the room? Okay. Are there any Zoom comments? I'm gonna have to figure out how to work
Yeah, you
this.
gotta go to my laptop.
Hold on, guys. Let me figure this out.
And if the hand is raised, it should come to the front.
There are no raised hands, sir.
I was gonna say, I don't think I see any. All right, then are there anyone want to raise their hand on Zoom? Now is your chance. No takers? Okay, members of the board, any response to the last two comments we received from Sarah and Kurt?
I don't have it.
I'm good.
I think it's a fine change. It definitely addresses all the issues that were raised at the previous hearing. And I think it will be an asset, considering what's there is an incredible eyesore. This will be an asset for the town and for Bennett Street. And I appreciate your work.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate you hearing what was said last month and addressing all the items. It's rare that happens.
Can I just also, a quick thing, for Donna, collaborate, and finding middle ground, so.
Do you have any further comments, sir, before we move on to board deliberation?
No, just good, thanks, appreciation.
All right, I'm going to close the public hearing and move to board deliberation. Motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay. Vote to approve the motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Yes.
Okay. Motion approved to close the public hearing. We'll move on to board deliberations.
Robert's rules of law.
I'm working on it here. Don't ask me to chair any boards now. All right, we'll take comments, members of the board. Rob?
No comment.
Jim?
I have no further comments.
My comment would simply be that I noted the changes you guys made, the efforts you made to comply with both neighbor and board requests and appreciate them. Appreciate the improvements that have been made to the application and the fact that you're now under a lot of the limits that you were over or up against in the past. Ryan?
Well, I echo what you said and what I had said earlier, because it's refreshing. Thank you.
I have no addition.
No further comments. Okay, in which case, we are going to vote, take two separate votes here, one for a special permit and one for a variance. I move to approve a special permit under sections 5.4, 7.2, and 12.5 of the zoning bylaw and/or other relief as may be necessary to allow the raising of an existing non-conforming two-family residence which encroaches into the east side setback and into the front side setback, and construction of a new single-family residence which encroaches approximately 12 feet into the east side setback and approximately 4 feet into the front setback at 9 Bennett Street, Assessors Map 28, Lot Number 10 in District A, filed with the Town Clerk April 22nd, 2024. This motion is based on a finding that the proposed use is in harmony with the purpose and intent of the bylaw. The proposed new residence, which encroaches into the front and side setbacks, will not be substantially more detrimental or injurious to the neighborhood in which it is located than the existing non-conforming structure. And all conditions under sections 12.5.2 of the zoning bylaw for a grant of a special permit have been met. The following conditions must be met for this permit. The residential structure is located as depicted on the Zoning Board of Appeals plan prepared by North Shore Survey Corporation and dated June 13th, 2024. And that the residential structure is built substantially in accordance with the following plans. Done by Bosworth Architect LLC, dated June 16th, 2024, A1, A2, and A3 proposed floor plans, and A4 and 5 elevations. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote.
Approved.
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 Unanimous approval.
Congratulations.
All right, we're all set. I'll turn the meeting back over to Sarah. No?
Thank you, folks.
Oh, sorry, one more vote. You're right. I need to further move for their variance request. Sorry, my fault. I further move that relief for impervious surfaces. Hold on a second. Let me just find out what I'm moving for here. I'm moving for relief on the variance, which is going to be for not impervious surfaces. It's, oh, I got it, okay. We are going to move for relief. Excess coverage by surfaces and total coverage is not required because it now conforms based on the new document submitted, but I'm going to move to approve the application for a variance under sections 5.4 and 12.3.3 of the zoning bylaw and/or other relief as may be necessary to construct a single-family residence which encroaches into the west side setback approximately 6 feet. And this motion is based upon a finding that owing to circumstances relating to the shape and topography of the land, especially affecting such land and structure but not generally affecting the zoning district in which it is located, a literal enforcement of the provisions of this bylaw would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the application, and desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent or purpose of the bylaw. The following conditions would accompany this relief. The residential structure is constructed in accordance with all the plans listed above under the conditions for the special permit, and the lot coverage requirements for District A are met, and the existing shed is removed as shown on the plans. Do I have a second?
Second.
Jim, second, and a roll call vote, Rob?
Approved.
Jim?
Approved.
Ryan?
Approved.
Okay. All right, now I think we're done with this application. The motion second motion for the variance was approved unanimously. And I will close the public hearing on this application and turn it back over to Sarah for the rest of the applications. Thank you all.
You did such a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who wrote all that? Was Sarah?
Yeah, mostly.
I
made some
would
tweaks.
suggest that maybe we need a volunteer to write the decision. And it needs to be somebody who will be on the board after June 30th.
Oh, geez.
Oh, yeah, I
I
know.
wanted to do it so bad.
Me too.
And I've got cookies to pass out to
Saw
the board.
that too.
Right, who's gonna write?
I'll write it.
All right. And who will review?
I'll read it.
Thank you, Jim.
What's the timing on that?
90 days. Okay.
Would you like a cookie?
I would love a cookie.
Who doesn't want a cookie?
Catherine said she'd do anything for cookies. And this
Almost
is her
anything.
last night, so I brought cookies.
She must have been a lot of fun in college too.
Watch my cake stands.
We're losing 2 people.
Hmm?
We're losing 2 people?
Yes.
No.
Welcome to the board.
Ooh, these
We've all been here a long time.
Did you
Well,
make
most of
these,
us.
Sarah?
I did.
These are
They look
amazing.
delicious.
Oh, good. We now move to the 35 School Street. I will open the continued public hearing for the application of James Gaddis for a special permit under sections 5.4, 7.2, and 12.5 of the zoning bylaw, and other relief as may be necessary to extend the current encroachment into the setbacks and a variance under sections 5.4 and 12.3.3, the zoning bylaw, and other relief as may be necessary to excess coverage by structures and excess total coverage by structures and impervious surfaces at 35 School Street, Assessors Map number 51, Lot number 5, in District D1, filed with the town clerk on March 21st, 2024.
Hi, Veronica Hobson, Property Design, and the homeowner Jim Gaddis, or the property owner Jim Gaddis. And so, the board and the neighbors may recall that we were here last month with an application to demolish the existing single-family home and shed that sits on the corner of School Street and Brook Street. And the house is in extreme disrepair due to just a hoarding situation, and I think just kind of just neglect over the years. In fact, this shed has already been taken down, which sits pretty much right on the property line. Can everybody see that? Okay. This has been taken down. The current configuration of the lot includes parking that is along Brook Street. So this is the corner here, that school, this is Brook, and the existing parking area is along Brook and is abutting the neighbor at 3 Brook Street here, and I believe that house has been torn down, is under construction as a 2-family unit currently. Just to give a little bit of kind of step back and a little context there, this is the one that is being renovated right now, and this is the current structure. So let me just get rid of those. So at the last hearing, we heard some concern about, first of all, the size of the structure on the lot, and especially as it related to the lot coverage and also the impervious surfaces. The other concern that was expressed, I don't know if everyone will recall, but we had the garage for each unit. This is the 2-family unit that's being proposed. So there was a single-car garage that was located between the units as opposed to keeping it where it is today. And so there was a lot of neighborhood concern and board concern that this is a very busy intersection, and that moving the cars backing out further closer to the corner was creating a hazardous situation. And so what we did is we took a look at various ways of keeping the structure, keeping the livability of the structure, and trying to maintain a garage. And so we looked at maybe putting the garage underneath the structure. And what that does is it lifts the structure out of the ground, and it just became inconsistent with the architecture of the neighborhood, the scale of the neighborhood. It created this tower situation. So Jim and I went back and forth, and what we ultimately decided to do was to eliminate the garage. And I'll show you on the floor plan. What we've done instead is we've given each unit just a small shed large enough for some trash bins and a bike or two. So what that allowed us to do, the elimination of the garage, was to shrink the length of the structure considerably. So each, we just started with the livable unit, the habitable units. We shrunk those by 2 feet each and then 1 foot in depth. So this shrunk by 2, this shrunk by 2. And then we took an additional 8 feet out of the center section. So in total, we've reduced the length of this building by 12 feet and the depth of it by 1 foot. And the fact that we no longer need to accommodate parking between the units, I was able to bring this center section forward a little bit, breaking this rear elevation and just getting rid of that kind of long wall, breaking it up a little bit. So as far as the setbacks go, we've held that front corner, and this is what was previously proposed. The existing structure is currently 4.5 feet off of the lot line at this corner, at this radius. The proposed structure would be 5 feet, so a little bit further away. The existing structure is only 0.6 feet off of the side lot line. We're moving the whole structure away, and so now the closest point is 5 feet. And we're conforming with regard to the rear lot line, and that's where we brought that 12 feet in. The other change that we made is the parking, and we're required to have 3 parking spaces, but we're allowing for 4 because we also recognize that street parking is an issue. So we want to make sure that we have 2 spots per unit and not just the required 3. And because we are trying to create just a bit more green space, that's all impervious surface now. So there won't be like a parking lot next to this house. This is all going to be pervious surface to try and make it look more like landscaping. So this is the first floor plan. You can see this is where we had the 2 garages. And now what I've done is I've taken the utility portions of the house, so the stairwell, the half bath, and then these small little shed areas here. Those are now in the center. These shrunk by 2 feet. And you can see the way that the 4-car parking would sit on the left. We have a bulkhead on each unit that would give access to the basement, which would remain unfinished. The second floor plan, we lost a fair amount of square footage because we lost the 12 feet in width, which meant we lost the little home office space, and all of the bedrooms had to shrink a bit. But we think that they're still all manageable with, smaller beds. We have full-size beds in the smaller room and then queens in the others. But it's still livable, it still works. So as far as the aesthetics of the house, we're still trying to keep it in scale with the neighborhood and aesthetically consistent with the neighborhood. So we still are trying to create the appearance of 2 volumes with a connector piece that is set back just a little bit. And we change material up just again to just kind of visually try to break up the facade of the house. And again, the parking would be over to the right. When we shrunk the widths of everything, we were able to also bring the height of the structure. There's a 35-foot height, like maximum height requirement now. We were, I think, a little over 30'6" before we're at 30 now, so we were able to bring that down even a little bit further. So we're 5 feet, below the required maximum height, or the maximum height not required. This is now the rear elevation. So you can see this is just the shed access that's set back a little bit. Little bulkheads, and then we do have just a little window for some light into that basement space. And then the side elevations are just mirror images of one another. So again, this would be the front, this would be the rear, and the parking is on this elevation, this front's School Street. I think that's it. So, additionally, one of the elements on this site that wasn't really noted before, but does exist, you can see it best, I think, in one of the photographs, and I can pass this around, is there's a retaining wall, a stone retaining wall along this whole corner. It starts here and it wraps around and it starts to die out somewhere right around the shed. And so it really does force all the circulation for the, walkways and the driveways and everything else to be over to the left side of the property along Brook Street. So it really did make sense to keep the parking in that area, and the fact that it increased the safety there also just was a bonus. So, so we did reduce it by 12 feet in width, 1 feet in the rear. We are now conforming to both the lot coverage and the impervious surface. The lot coverage, the maximum allowable is 40. We're now at 38.2. And the impervious surface coverage, the max allowable is 50, and we're at 45.4.
Any questions from the board?
Talk a little bit about the parking area, what you're planning to do, and have you gone to get a curb cut yet from the planning board?
There's already curb cut there.
Oh, there is?
There is.
It's hard to tell when we were there.
Yeah, if this image shows it really well, actually. This entire cut is existing, and so the intent is to utilize that existing cut.
So tell me a little bit about the pervious parking area.
So we haven't made a final decision whether it's going to be more like a gravel kind of parking area, maybe with a cobbled edge, or if we're actually going to look at, they have the pavers that allow actual like green to grow up through. I think that's ultimately going to be a budget decision, but those are the two that we've been talking about.
Rob?
No.
So you're saying that where the cars are going is an existing driveway on the property?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's hard to tell when we were out there.
Yeah, so this is the existing curb cut right there, and that's the
Okay.
parking. So this is the house that's been demolished that they're rebuilding. So that would be where the parking would be.
Would they be parking on the sidewalk?
Excuse me,
I'm sorry.
I have not yet asked for questions from the public.
I'm sorry. I'm new to this. I just blurted things out. So.
With that, I will ask if there's any questions from the public, and if so, please raise your hand and state your name and address.
Gail Masiero, 7 Brook Street.
And ask your question. Ask your
Well,
question.
yeah, we're just,
Excuse me,
yeah.
excuse me.
sorry.
Ask your question through me, please.
I'm sorry too.
So I wondered if the parking was gonna impact the sidewalk.
No.
Or how far it will.
No, so the parking does not impact the sidewalk. So the lot line actually starts on the other side of the sidewalk. The sidewalk would be here. So all of the parking is contained well within the lot.
Okay, and there's plenty of room for 4 cars.
There's plenty of room for 4 cars there, yeah. With a little bit of extra buffer.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a question? Ms. Gates, please
My
state your
name is
name and
Katarina
address.
Gates, used to be 33 School Street, but it was originally to Desmond School Street. And we are the only abutters to that property. And the other ones are the ones that they're just renovating, restoring the other. We have no problem with anybody building any place they purchase. But when you purchase the property, they are aware of all the rules and regulations of that piece of property, if their realtor told them, or if they went to the town to find out. And that was a non-conforming law. That means it wasn't made for a certain type of a building. We don't care if it's for 1 or 2 days, if they can put it there, that's fine. But they're asking for a special permit, which will affect us. And we're the only ones who are affected. Nobody else in town will be affected by that. They're asking for the back distance between them, that long structure, and our own property to be 5 feet instead of the 10 that the regulations have. So we're opposing to that. And because we're the only ones affected, nobody else. The property of ours is higher than the lot in Mr. Guy. So it's quite an elevation. You can see it from now. it was all one piece of property all together. And they kind of, you don't care what to do. And so we're trying now to put a property, a piece of a building there that he's asking for special permits. And the only reason we are opposing is the distance between them and us. Because one building that now is on doesn't exist. That they're creating a space to build homes. And then the other side is this one. So it would be an L of all these structures going up to 3 floors, and they will look right in our face. We don't even have a window. We have a property already. Our property is abutting to Mr. Gavis. I think he has only 6 inches real property for him, and the rest is ours. So it's amazing to me. We don't have a window towards his property because you don't want to look at somebody's face. You open the window and look at theirs. So that's what they have. And 5 feet away, it's not really a big distance. That's why I think between neighbors they have regulations. So that's our only problem.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gates. Is there any other member of the public? Mr. Yates.
Catherine Komisky,
What is your address?
6 Summer Street, Manchester. So I was even walking down Allen today to visit my sister who lives right across from, she's at 37 School Street. She's right at the opposite corner. And like the traffic there, and the school is right at the end of, end of the street. And I walk during my lunch, I work at the school, and I just can't imagine to have this duplex, I'm concerned about the safety of children and traffic. That's my biggest concern.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gates?
Tim Gates, 2 Desmond Avenue. Of course, I am violently opposed to the 10-foot setback being violated by a 5-foot tenement type of thing. This enormous mass of an ordinary building dominating the view shed from Desmond Ave. And no redeeming features whatsoever as I can see. They're tearing down a house that is reputed to have been a health hazard, and that's presumably why Mr. Gaddis wants to waste no time getting rid of that older building. And it's only 1.5 feet. It's got, I believe, granite block foundations, as we do, that it could be perfectly used for building 2.5-story building on the same foundation. We'd have no problem whatsoever with that. The problems go back further in time. This planning board in 2009 in July with Mr. Whitten had come to an agreement that an existing building before a cutoff date could have an additional dwelling unit, but built and occupied after that, there can be no additional building unit, just 1 unit on the lot. I'm going to presume that that agreement is, in principle, is still in effect.
Mr.
And I was
Gates,
at that meeting, and I know it happened.
we go based on the zoning bylaw that's in effect. And under the zoning bylaw, this property is zoned to allow a 2-family residence. And in addition, under zoning bylaws and under all case law, if a person is currently encroaching into a setback, they do have the right to build a new structure within that same setback with a special permit.
If
That's
it
what's
was
before
built
us.
on the same foundation.
It doesn't
It
have
is
to
not.
be. It doesn't have to be under case law and zoning bylaws.
Now you can imagine, all of you can share, this huge mass the people next door on Three Brook to Desmond very carefully did their additions to the gutted structure well within the setback of 10 feet, both on the westerly side, our, and the eastern line, Mrs. Stafford. And that is the same problem, an enormous, massive building, but Mrs. Stafford's building is of a similar construction. This is going to dwarf the immediate neighborhood across the street of Brook Street, and the people are concerned there about the traffic and the parking and the exit and entry. As I said earlier, they're well within the 100-foot of Cellar Brook, and they'll need to meet Concom approvals before they can do anything. As my wife just commented, they've already started digging away at the boundary line, which is creating a nuisance as our fencing has started and the land it's on is starting to crumble and decay, which is a problem that we're going to endeavor to fix, possibly with constructing a small concrete reinforced wall along that line with columns for fencing, and thereby preserve some degree of privacy along with our vegetation. This is like a monstrosity. It's going to upset the balance of the immediate neighborhood. It's, well, from the backside, it's not attractive. I don't think it's all that attractive from the front either, but that's a judgment on aesthetics.
Thank you, Mr. Bates. Yes, sir.
Hi, Dan DiOrio, 6 Brook Street. I live directly across from here, well, next to my neighbors here. Sorry again for speaking out of turn. So I just had a comment about the fact that it's the existing house is a single family, and because of the zoning, they're allowed to, build a 2-family there. But it still has to conform within the space, which it apparently that all does. But by making a 2-family, now you're making it, you're implying that there's more parking, which there really isn't any more parking than there is currently there. And I challenge the fact that there was ever a garage there. I've lived there since 2003. That thing's been like half fallen down the whole time, and I don't think it was even big enough for a car. So I wouldn't call that a garage by any fashion
It
of
doesn't need to be
imagination.
a garage. It's a curb cut off the street. It doesn't
Okay.
require a garage.
All I'm saying is by going into this idea that we can build a 2-family in this district, which is within the bylaws, the lot size needs to kind of jive with the fact that it's a 2-family, not because it's currently a 1-family, which you could comfortably have about 2 cars there now. But now you're gonna take away all the lawn, build it, make 2-family, 2 separate structures, not separate but adjoining, and with the expectation that there's gonna be 4 parking spots, and there really isn't. I mean, sure, you can stack them in there like you do at Fenway Park, but it's not like someone's gonna be able to pull in and out of there easily. And then you're getting to the situation with the fire trucks coming around the corner because we're a cut through for the emergency vehicles to come through to get to the west side of Manchester. So it definitely is a dangerous situation for cars to be jerry rigging in there like you have shown there. It's stacked 2 by 2.
Right. So for
That's my
a
comment.
2-family home, they're only required to have 3 parking spaces.
Okay.
So they're providing more than the minimum required in the zoning bylaw.
Okay.
It's an existing curb cut.
Yes, it is.
So there's really nothing in our purview regarding that parking. They could theoretically make a single-family home exactly that size, looking exactly like that.
Yes, that's true. And then you're implying there's 2 cars there, or it's
Not necessarily.
Well, if it's 2 different families living in this location, currently there's 1 family living there. Now you're selling it as two different families who will be living there. Each family has X many cars.
But we're just looking at the parking requirements in the zoning bylaw.
I get it, I get it.
And they qualify. I'll let you speak once more. Yes,
Oh, great.
please state your name again.
Catherine Komisky. I'm just concerned, the traffic for when people whip into Brook Street, people pulling out of that driveway to have, 4 cars, it's a very tough situation.
I'm sure
We're
that's
all aware of
ideal.
that.
I live on Bennett Street, and there are only 2 driveways on Bennett Street that don't require cars to park out. And it's a throughway. So we have it all
Yeah.
over town.
Yeah, the one-ways there are crazy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Did you have something you wanted to say about it? No, okay. Yes, sir.
I have several comments
Excuse
and possibly
me.
one question.
Excuse me, your name and address.
My name is Michael Gates. I live at 31 School Street. I'll start with my comments and then the possible question. Whenever it's brought up that this is going to be within the conforming of the bylaws, it should be pointed out that that's only if you give them an exemption. And without the exemption, then they do not conform. I mean, that should be understood, not passed over. Secondly, as far as, this is more a comment towards all of the proposals that have been, not just this one, but the other ones as well. It seems as if a lot of the developers are using the neighbors to provide the privacy for their proposed projects, and not just this one, but also the red house that's being put in. They're sort of using your elevation to give the privacy for the backside of the house and all these other things. And the 10-foot setback is partly for privacy. If you take that away and make it 5, you're basically making a walkway. And if the neighbor, in this instance it's my parents, decided to eliminate their hedgerow, the privacy is eliminated, and then the owner of the property adjacent to it is then going to have the issue where they have no privacy because they have a 5-foot space with no space to put anything for their own privacy. And so you're creating a problem for the future owner, even if the current one doesn't care. So that's another just comment. And then I do agree with the traffic situation and the idea of the shuffling of cars. That we have multiple cars ourselves, so I'm familiar with having to shuffle out in the winter time and other things. And that's just sort of in a small town or in a city. That's just you just have to sort of cope with it as best you can. So I'm not sure, that's not really a new problem, that's a problem for probably everybody in town. And the question I have, if it is a question, is when you're considering providing relief for a situation where someone is asking for hardship relief, in this situation, the owner has created their own hardship because they want to put something there that was not existing there. And so without that, it's not really a hardship, it's more of a, I want to do this, and so I've created my own problem. How do you think of that as a board in considering it?
Well, this is a special permit which does not require a hardship.
Okay. I just remember from the previous.
Yeah, the previous one was asking for a variance, which requires a hardship. In this case, there was an existing structure which was closer to the lot line. The housing next door is well within the setback already, so that's not a problem we can solve. The issue is this substantially more detrimental than what was there? That's what we have.
The only other comment I have is to do with the existing structure, the adjacent structure. As was mentioned earlier, the backside of my parents' house does not have any window. So even though it is only a 6-inch setback for the existing structure, there was really never an issue of visibility because neither house really saw each other. And now if it's going to be the whole length of the property, you're creating a situation where the whole length of the property is right up on the wall essentially. So you create a visual obstacle that was not previously existing because there was no window to look at what was there. So it's just a comment on that.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public on Zoom who would like to speak on this application? If so, please raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing none, does any member of the board have any more questions of the applicant?
No.
Okay. I guess I'll follow Catherine's lead and take a motion to close the public hearing. Second.
Second.
Rob seconds.
Approved.
Vote.
Approved.
Sean, Brian,
Yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Rob, and Sarah. Yes. Okay. So,
Deliberation?
yeah, entering deliberations, what is the board's feeling?
I'm just struggling with more detrimental to the neighborhood. That's the only thing I'm struggling with.
You know,
I'm
the
hearing
lot,
an entire neighborhood.
the lot's small.
Yeah.
There's not much you can do with it.
Mhm.
They're two small units, for two probably young families who are gonna start out. I think that's.
I think it's a good design.
Yeah.
Again, what I'm struggling with is what I'm hearing from the neighborhood,
Yeah.
as far as more detrimental to the neighborhood.
I don't,
Is there a rule on, sorry, Rob, I didn't mean to cut you off, go ahead.
I don't think it's gonna be more detrimental to the neighborhood, and given the lot size and what there's to work with, and I mean, Capri Design, I'm familiar with their work, she's a good designer, I think that that's probably the best that we can hope for in this situation.
Question, I can't find it in our new revised bylaws here, but is there a bylaw regarding backing out of a driveway?
Not for
and-
residential.
Not for residential, okay, that
Yeah,
was,
that's the other thing I'm concerned with.
Right.
that's what I
You
mean,
have
I,
someone who's, two people in,
Right.
one car is gonna back up while the other car, it happens all the time.
Right.
Yeah, and then, I saw it on Pine Street this morning heading out of town.
it's just a bad part of town for this to happen in with where the kids go to school. I mean, I appreciate that this is within the overlay district for density zoning, and I appreciate that we need more two-family housing, and I appreciate that they cut down, they did so much to come within the requirements, and I actually, to Rob's point, think it's a great design for this spot. I share some of the concerns that have been expressed regarding, you know, kids walking to school and the dangerousness of that intersection. But I don't know that there's a lot within our purview that we can do about that. If there's no zoning bylaws that address that, I kind of flummoxed about what we could do about it. That's my comment, I guess. I appreciate the concerns for sure on the parking. I also appreciate the efforts that the applicant has made to bring this into conformity with a lot of requirements and make a really aesthetically pleasing structure that would serve two families nicely.
But I think our challenge with the parking is the fact that the curb cut already exists.
Yeah, exactly.
If
So
it
they don't
didn't,
have to go to planning or anything.
if it didn't exist, they would have to go to planning and they would have to update more.
And then planning could require certain turnarounds or whatever, which we
Yeah.
don't, it's not within our purview. I
Correct.
just was reading it to, and it's not
Yeah, so
within our
that's
purview to
the
make those
challenge.
requirements.
Yeah. If it
So
wasn't an
it's-
existing curb cut, then I think it would be a
We could
different
condition it
situation.
maybe, or
Yes, yeah,
planning could, but
That's why I asked that question.
right, yeah.
And I think with whether you have the single family or a double family, you're still gonna have the same situations with traffic.
Yeah.
You're still gonna have the same people, you know, getting around buses, everything through there. You're not changing anything. And the house that they could build there as a single family could even be, you know.
6 cars or something, you don't know.
Right, you don't know. I mean, some of these houses with some of the kids, yeah, they have at least 6 cars.
Cars.
One nicer cars than I own.
Yeah, me too, but setting that aside. So I don't know, I mean, I understand and agree with some of the concerns, but I don't know if there's anything we can do within the scope of our authority to address them, really, on the parking. Otherwise, I think they've done a great job.
I think they've addressed the parking adequately. The fact that fire trucks occasionally go around that corner. I live on Pine Street. I'm not a longtime resident of the town. I moved here in 2008. And I took an old house and spent a fair amount of money redoing it. And I'll tell you, there's more traffic on Pine Street there is on Brook Street. And cars go flying down Pine Street, particularly in the morning when all the trucks are going to Crosby's. I said to myself, well, if you want to live in a small town, there are things you have to deal with. Small towns are changing. More people are coming here, not that many more. We have a lack of housing. This is a great way to get another family, probably two families, because whoever was living in that house as existed, I understand it was a bit of a dump. The design is a nice design. The fact that comments have made about how it's going to present a wall to the back, well, I would point out that the dwelling next to it is probably sitting in the setback. Yeah, significantly in the setback. So like, it's sort of like, I was down south where I was born, it would be like the pot calling the kettle black. It's a good design. We're going to have to learn how to be flexible. That's why we have zoning. And when we bring up zoning at town meeting, I would encourage people to start reading the warrants and pay attention, because they keep voting these things down. We try to do the right thing, and people say, oh, zoning, we're going to vote against it. Well, we have to start paying attention, people, because we are dealing with the law, that is the zoning regulations that exist. We don't create them, we just have to administer them. And I think this particular applicant has done a really good job, considering the comments that were made at the previous hearing, to reduce the size, to deal with some of these issues. This should be a nice attraction to Brook Street, considering what's there, which is an eyesore. That place needs a good fire. And it's close to the firehouse, so it'll be convenient for them too. But, I mean, we have to kind of think about the future of our town.
So let me kick that up.
I'm sorry?
Nothing. His
Yeah.
AI is talking to us. Jim,
Yeah.
I will accord with what you said on the setbacks. They are improving them. They are improving the nonconformities in the setback, not increasing them. And so from that perspective, they're improving an existing nonconformity. They're not bringing it totally into compliance, but they're improving it pretty significantly. So I'm not sure there's a ton of complaint on that matter really to consider when they're making an improvement to the existing closeness of the properties and houses. So I would agree with you on that.
A lot of pros and cons here.
A lot of pros and cons.
A lot of pros and cons, and now I've got to weigh which is heavier, the pros or the cons.
There you go.
Any more discussion? We've closed the public hearing, we're not taking any more comments from
I
the
would
public.
like to respond to.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Gates.
Mr. Dyer made a mistake. Mr.
Sarah,
Dyer made a mistake.
would you consider, would we, board members, would we like to consider, or would we consider any condition on rentals of this property, given our concerns about parking and familiarity with the area? Parking, could be a thing. Short-term renters would not be familiar with the street they're backing into. Long-term renters would be, or owners would be. So I would that could, short-term renters.
Condition on short-term rentals under
We have the
both.
authority to do that.
Correct.
We do. We've done it before.
Yeah.
Yes, I would not want to see these used as short-term rentals.
Prohibit short-term rentals.
I don't
both
know if the applicant's okay with that. I'm
Under
just
the
floating
town
it.
and the state short-term rental definition.
I don't know.
Do you have any comment on that, Mr. Gaddis?
I don't think I understand what you're saying.
Sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
No, you can go ahead.
I was.
You're talking about Airbnb?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
proposing that no short-term renters, with the concerns about parking, short-term renters wouldn't be familiar with the area or the parking, so I was proposing a condition that only sort of long-term rentals, we could talk about the term, maybe 6 months to a year, are allowed in the building. No Airbnbs, weekends, weeks, that sort of thing.
So under the definition of the town and the state, the town's definition of a short-term rental is under a week. The state's definition is under 30 days.
Okay.
Any objections?
I hadn't thought of Airbnb, and to be honest with you,
So I don't have any objection. I didn't even know that that was under your jurisdiction to tell somebody that they can Airbnb their house or not.
I know.
But I hadn't considered it, so I don't have an objection to it. It's not my intent, never has been. But I guess I learned something that the zoning board can tell us what to do, right?
Well,
I didn't know. It's good to know.
Well, we're not gonna
I've
tell you
never
what
done
to do,
this
but we'll
before,
tell you we're
so-
not gonna approve
in,
it.
in
Are you
order,
willing to accept
Of
that as a
course,
condition?
it was never,
if that's
it was
the way
never
goes?
something I even thought of.
It wasn't a consideration, so you would be willing to accept that
Of
as a
course, yeah.
condition? Would mitigate the safety, I'm sure you can understand why.
Sure.
May I make
We're
a
not taking
correction?
No.
public comment.
I'm
Because
sorry.
somebody- But there was a mistake. No. There's a mistake and it shouldn't go on with the mistake.
I'm sorry, we closed the public hearing.
Also, I want to say that we're going to appeal
Yes,
this
you're right.
decision.
That's right.
Thank you.
Everyone appeals us nowadays.
In boxes.
Okay, are we ready to take a vote?
Sure.
And the votes will be, since Jim is the sixth member, he will not be voting on this application, okay? I move that relief under a variance for excess lot coverage by structures and total lot coverage by structures and impervious surfaces is not required based on the revised plans filed with the town clerk on June 10th, 2024, and move to approve the application of James Gaddis for a special permit under sections 5.4, 7.2, and 12.5 of the zoning bylaw, and other relief as may be necessary to allow the raising of an existing single-family residence which encroaches into the south side setback over 9 feet and both front setbacks over 5 feet, and construction of a new two-family residence which encroaches into the south side setback 5 feet and encroaches into the front northwest corner setback 5 feet at 35 School Street, Assessors Map number 51, Lot number 5 in District D1, filed with the town clerk on March 21st, 2024, based on a finding that the proposed use is in harmony with the purpose and intent of the bylaw. The proposed new residence, which encroaches into the side and front setbacks, will not be substantially more detrimental or injurious to the neighborhood in which it is located than the existing non-conforming structure, which will be raised, and all conditions under section 12.5.2 of the zoning bylaw for the grant of a special permit have been met, based on the following conditions. The residential structure and parking in the driveway are located as depicted on the Zoning Board of Appeals plan prepared by North Shore Survey Corporation dated March 14th, 2024, as revised on May 30th, 2024. The residential structure is built substantially in accordance with the following plans prepared by Taproot Design dated 3/14/24 as revised 6/1/24. A1 and A2 proposed floor plans. A3 and A4 proposed elevations. And no short-term rentals under the town or Commonwealth of Massachusetts definitions will be permitted on the property. Do I have a second?
Second.
Catherine seconds. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Sean?
Approved.
Brian?
No.
Catherine?
Approve.
Rob?
Approved.
And Sarah approves.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
I'll
Thank you, guys.
I'll write this one. Who would like to review it? Jim will review it.
I missed you. I heard you say short term. I don't know. I'm not saying they can't rent it.
No, we're not telling-
Never. Never.
We're not
That's
telling
what I-
them they can't, we're not telling them what they can do, we're telling them
I heard no.
don't.
That's why I asked. I was going, what?
Just the crazy person here on my last night on the board. I'm just gonna tell everyone.
No, we're just gonna blow everything up right now.
Light it on fire.
May I ask a general question? When those plans are presented to you, do you get to keep a full set?
You can get a
Yes.
full set at that town hall.
Yes.
Anytime, you can go to the town clerk, you get a copy
Where is that kept?
downstairs at
Contact
the
Gail
town clerk.
Hunter.
Siri didn't like what he said about
Seriously,
the
I was
house,
not
the house
happy.
fire.
Siri was upset.
It's like, what?
His
My
AI
computer, when he
started
said something
talking
about
back.
the house, it needs to set
Started
up.
talking back.
It picked it up.
Okay.
I'm sitting here next to this AI thing.
It's hearing everything, don't say anything.
Well,
It's
it's a
picking
little
you up,
too late for
Brian,
that.
yeah.
A little late for that.
Yeah, trust me, it's trying to tune you out.
Call your defense attorney.
I think what I'm gonna do next is do 16 Loading Place Road, okay? This is, the applicant has requested a continuance. What? We had it signed.
Oh, good.
Okay, so the applicant requested a continuance to our July meeting.
Oh, geez, Catherine, what more you
I'll tune in, maybe.
So,
Just for fun?
I might put you anyway, I'm the liaison.
oh yeah, at the request of the applicant, I move to approve the continuance of the application of Luck Verbist, 16 Loading Place Road, for a special permit under sections 5.3, 6.3, 7.2, and 12.5 of the zoning bylaw to add 1,087 square feet to existing floor area by a first floor addition and second floor dormers, raise the roof ridge and height of the entire structure to approximately 34 feet, and add 2 second floor dormers on the portion of the structure that lies within the 20-foot setback at 16 Loading Place Road, assessors map number 37, lot number 49 in District A, filed with the town clerk on May 13th, 2024. Do I have a second?
Second.
Rob seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, approved, and I will sign it. Sorry, Mr. Zager, I just wanted to get that out of the way. Okay. Next application is 21 Union Street. I will open the public hearing for the application of Adam and Cynthia Zager for a modification / new special permit under sections 5.0, 7.2, and 12.5 of the zoning bylaw, and other relief as may be necessary, add dormers to a previously approved special permit, and variances under sections 4.3, 6.1, 6.3, and 12.3.3 of the zoning bylaw, and other relief as may be necessary to allow parking in the setback and allow a residence in an accessory structure be occupied by persons who are not employees of the property owner at 21 Union Street, assessors map number 45, lot number 12 in District G, filed with the town clerk on April 23rd, 2020. Mr. Zager?
Thank you. This application really is two parts. Part number one is a proposed amendment to a special permit that was issued by the board and filed with the registry on February 10th, 2022, to allow us to create a dwelling unit for an employee in the barn behind our property at 21 Union Street. The first part of our application seeks to amend that. The plan that was originally approved on the southerly side called for 4 skylights. And as we evaluated the project, started to connect to utilities, and started talking to contractors and pricing, and started to really dig into the what the space was going to be like, and how the structure was going to work, it just became clear to us that it was not going to be a viable project. Those would be the only windows. Actually, it's on the westerly side. Those 4 skylights would have been the only light coming into the upstairs, which is really going to be the main living space. And there are no windows on the easterly side. So what we did is we worked with our architect, Remco Bucher, and Historic, to have a new dormer approved. It's a shed dormer. apologies, I'm not connected. But as you can see here, this west elevation shows a shed dormer that'll really span most of the roof line with 3 windows, and that's going to allow us to bring light into the structure. Does everybody have that? It's the first page of our Exhibit A, the west elevation that shows the new dormer. So for that, we think it's a very simple, minor change, but we wanted to come before the ZBA just to make sure that we had your approval before we proceeded with the work, given the great cost involved. We don't see how this could possibly be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than what's already approved. There's not going to be, right now we're showing 4 windows. We may slightly move those depending upon the interior wall layout that we finally arrive at, but we don't think there's going to be any more light or noise, anything else that would affect any of the abutters than what was already approved. So that's really the structural aspect of what we're asking for. It's not going to result in any kind of change in the character. As we said, Historic District Commission has already approved it. There's all of the elements that go with a special permit. It's almost silly to list them because none of them would be affected by a dormer. Things like noise, vibration, wildlife, natural resources, utilities. It's really the same structure. It's just going to have a little bit better light exposure on the westerly side than what we originally proposed. And we think it's really necessary just to make it a usable, livable space on the upstairs. So that covers the structural piece. I don't know if the board want to tackle the structural first and then the variance on the occupant second, or
Yeah, I think we can probably do the special permit first. What?
Maybe.
Or you want to hear everything?
Maybe, because
Okay, I guess we'd like to hear everything.
Sure.
Well, going down flames.
So in addition to the structure and the request for the amendment, we're requesting a variance to allow this living space, this living quarters, to be occupied by someone other than an employee of the owner occupant of the property. We feel that this is a classic case where a variance is required based upon all the elements under the bylaw and under the state statute, 48 Section 10. We've got an incredibly unique circumstance where we have a barn that is constructed literally at the epicenter of the central business district. It is historic. It's existed for almost 200 years. It has a wood floor. It's been worked on for decades. There's some serious structural issues with the building that we're going to need to address in order to save it. And as I showed members of the ZBA who were at the site visit yesterday, the westerly wall is sort of bowing outward. On the second floor, there's literally a steel cable that ties the whole building together, which prevents you from really creating any space. And for that reason, we have to, or very likely, are going to have to remove the entire second floor, create a whole brand new second floor structure, which is going to be incredibly expensive. In addition to that, we have foundation work to do. The foundation is only a partial foundation, so the contractors that we've spoken to so far, at least more than likely, they think we might have to even raise and lift the whole structure up to shore up and finish the foundation beneath. So in addition to that, over the years, there was a concrete floor that was installed in the front right quadrant of the barn, which is sort of dragging it down. And so we've got to do structural work to shore that up. There's just a whole host of issues that are going to make this a very, very expensive project. So we think this is a classic case where literal enforcement of the bylaw is going to result in substantial hardship to us. We have, financial and otherwise, we have talked to folks to finance this project, and essentially with the way that the code is written with an employee unit, you can't count any income from that unit towards your appraised value and towards your loan. So we are literally talking about a difference of hundreds of thousands of dollars that we would potentially be unable to borrow to build this, to save the structure and create this living quarters if we can only rent it to an employee. We also think that there's also another element to this that we're asking for a variance. The park, as it turns out, we have a requirement in our zoning bylaw that parking cannot be located within 5 feet of a lot line. Which means that the actual parking space that's in our barn, that's been existing for who knows how long. We actually understand it might have been the first place a car was ever parked in Manchester by the Sea. Turns out to be pre-existing non-conforming. And given the change in use, we would like a variance to make sure that that is legalized. So in essence, we feel that this really is a situation where we're trying to just take a structure that exists and save it and do it in a way that's in harmony with the bylaw. We don't think that there's going to be any difference in effect on the neighborhood from having somebody who lives there who might work in town. They might be a teacher in town, they might work at a restaurant in town, or they might work in Boston. It doesn't, to us, we don't think it has any difference, and it doesn't matter. And it's important to note that we're in the general district, which is supposed to be the area that we're trying to create housing. We're trying to do smart things to build our housing stock, and the district can potentially allow 4 units per property. We could take our existing house right now and put 3 units in it as of right without changing it. Yet ironically, we're faced with a situation where we can't have 2 units, 1 in the house and 1 in the barn, which really is the most, to us, it's really the proper and the best way to make use of the property, to keep everybody spaced out in a way that makes sense, and to have another dwelling unit on site. So another route you could go would be to try to connect them with a breezeway or something, but we just don't think that makes sense. It just seems to disrupt the flow of the property in the yard, and it just seemed most it seemed most expedient for us to say, let's make this variance request, because we think it fits all of the elements. We've got a unique situation, a barn at the epicenter of town that you don't see it generally anywhere else. It's completely, that type of building with horse stalls is completely unsuitable to the area. We've got to do something with it. It was all built with a dormer. It used to be heated upstairs. There's a coal heating system that's been dismantled years ago. So we just really feel this is the best way to tackle the problem. Unlike some of the residential districts in town, we don't have an accessory dwelling unit provision in our bylaw that applies to the G district. So it really leaves us with no alternative but to either take it down and do something else by adding to the house or connect a breezeway, or just to request this variance. And since we think it meets all of the requirements under the statute and the bylaw, we wanted to present that to the board and get your thoughts.
Thank you. I guess I have one concern I have is that your special permit expired on February 10th of 2024.
Under the new bylaw, isn't it good for 3 years now?
It was issued for 2 years when it was issued.
Okay.
The 3 years does not apply retroactively. So that requires us, in my understanding, is it would require us to issue a new special permit. Okay. Just wanted to state that up front.
Well, in that case, we would request that it would be reissued. I think it would be under a different, because it's a whole different bylaw. I think it was under the table of uses, there's a new use, and I think it's note 13. So we would request that the same permit just be reissued with all the same conditions as what we're requesting here tonight.
Yeah. Plus the dormers.
Right.
Rob, do you have any questions?
I mean, if it's the same circumstances that was issued last time, just with the addition of a dormer, I don't see an issue.
What about the variance request?
Again,
Or
same.
do we want to wait on that?
Well, I mean, I guess I'll address this through you, Sarah, but I have an issue because reading this, it sounds like, we're gonna evict an otherwise peaceful resident, and then on the other hand, it sounds like it's not occupied right now.
Right, it is.
So, what's going on here, really? And if we issued a special permit for an employee, then we did that for reasons that were related to an employee needing to live there, but there's no employee living there.
Right.
So, that is actually my biggest problem with the application is it feels, may not be, but upon first read, it feels a little disingenuous to me.
Well, and I have a bigger concern.
Go ahead.
With respect to that. At our November 13th, 2023 special town meeting, there was Article 4. There was a request to amend the bylaw to eliminate the caveat of the employee and to allow any type of renter, to rent the property. That article was not approved by the town. It failed the 2/3 required vote. So it seems to me that one of the requirements for issuing a variance is that it has to be without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intended purpose of the bylaw. Seems to me that if the town voted not to expand that section of the bylaw, that we would be derogating from the intent and purpose of the bylaw. And I'm reluctant personally to issue a variance for something the town voted down 6 months ago.
Could I respond? Because we do recognize that. We probably would have been here before had that not been pending. It did get, actually, by presidential standards, it passed with a landslide. It got 60% voting in favor and 40% no. So I'm not sure that that's actually, I understand your point, and I agree with the fact that we have to be focusing on that. That's one of the critical variance elements. But the town vote didn't say that folks couldn't come before the board and ask for a variance if all of the elements were satisfied. And here, I think you really have a situation where, like I said, we could, as of right, put 3 units in our house, or 4 if we got a special permit. We're in the general district. Yet we're stuck in a situation where, at least according to our code, we need to come in front of the board and ask for a variance just to have 2. So I don't think that what we're asking for really derogates from the intent and purpose of the bylaw, because what we're really asking for at the end of the day is to have 2 families living on this property. When the bylaw, in fact, we changed our plan, we could be here asking for 4, or we could just be going for a building permit for 3.
But unfortunately, I disagree based on the way the bylaw is written. I agree 100% with you.
Yeah.
That what you're saying makes sense. But I am very reluctant to issue a variance on a topic that the town did not pass, because first you come to us, then somebody else comes to us, and then we have everyone in the general district coming to us, and the bylaw needs to be changed.
Well, that may be true, but you also have the ability to analyze and evaluate each proposal on its individual merits. That's what variances are for. And I don't believe that it's actually, it's not part of the criteria when you're considering a variance to say, well, I don't want to do it because we had a chance to change the bylaw last year and it didn't change. The fact is, because the bylaw didn't change is the reason why we're here. And to Catherine, to your point about the application, this barn would have been built earlier, much sooner, and there would be an employee living there if we could afford it. But the fact of the matter is, we haven't been able to obtain financing for it because of the way the code is written. And frankly, even if we could, I think we'd be very reluctant. This is going to be a very expensive project. I mean, we're looking at 1,600 feet or so, probably $350 a square foot, maybe more with the demo involved, with jacking up the foundation. This is a significant investment that I don't think somebody realistically would make unless they had a ton of cash, just to have it become illegal when we don't need a nanny anymore. We don't have somebody, an on-site employee. So that's why we're here. We're not trying to, we have, all we want to do is have a unit there that we can have somebody live in. We don't really have any concrete plans. It's probably going to be for babysitters / family. As we know in the code right now, we technically couldn't even have my mother come and move in. It's just not the way it works, which is why we're asking for a variance. And we think where it's 2 units, when we could, as of right, do 3, we think it's squarely within what the code really should be doing.
I think the other challenge is the variance needs to be based on owing to conditions of the shades, topography, the soils of the land.
But not necessarily the soils, it also applies to the structure under the state statute, under 4010. It can also be unique circumstances that relate to the structure. And we do feel that we've got, I mean, what could be more unique than a barn with horse stalls? It still has the horse stalls in it that are, it's 50 feet from the center of town. You know, something has to be done with it. We're not gonna, and we haven't been able to come up with a plan that works financially, just because the investment that's required these days with construction costs is so great that we just can't advance it unless we know that we've got that flexibility and we can finance it. So.
It's also, just one last thing, I just feel like this structure may get torn down so that we build on the back of the house another unit, right, within setbacks, if it's, and it's just not right.
Because what, I mean, that, if the board is not opposed to another dwelling unit on the property, I mean, if we could get around that particular code issue by building a breezeway connecting the two buildings, and instead we'd ask for a variance on setbacks. It's another, but it just seems like you're going about and doing things that are unnatural.
I don't disagree with you, but you understand, I mean, I know your profession, you understand that we're constrained by the bylaws and what they tell us to do,
Right,
and
but
that
you all,
those
as
are
a
the
board, you
scope of
also
our
have
authority.
very broad authority to interpret bylaws however you.
We do,
Yes, but
we do.
not when a vote has been taken by the town.
I would say that's irrelevant.
I don't agree.
Appreciate your argument.
It is not part of, I mean, when you evaluate a variance, there are statutory elements that you evaluate the variance under. And the fact that there was a town vote a year ago, or
So would we be derogating from the intent of the bylaw and going against what the town voted on at town meeting, in my opinion?
I mean, I'm all in favor of accessory dwelling units personally, like as in general, like I'd like to build one for my parents to stay at my house, like I'm not a person that's opposed to high density or accessory units or multiple family homes or anything like that, so there's nothing about that here, it's just what are we allowed to do and what can we do without derogating from the intent of the bylaw here.
Jim, your thoughts?
Well, I haven't heard. No, I agree with you. I think the reason we have bylaws is because it's the will of the town. And this comes up at town meeting. Almost every town meeting, we have proposed changes to the zoning board, zoning regulations. In more cases than not, they've been denied. For us to go against the wishes of town meeting would be a bit of a reach. Yes, you could say it'd be our authority. I suspect it would get overturned. And I think it would be not in the best interest of the zoning board to do that.
You have no abutters here tonight who are objecting, the direct abutters.
It doesn't matter whether there are abutters objecting or not. The variance and the zoning bylaws are very clear about this. The fact that the original special permit lapsed is another fact. So there is no special permit, that's gone. And you have not, in spite of all that, if we were to look at all this, you have not proposed how you're going to handle parking. You haven't talked about pervious or impervious, because from my visit there on Monday night, it looks like the entire area is paved over. There's very little open space. So I have no idea what the pervious-impervious ratio is, because we haven't been given any information about it. So I think you have a very iffy case here. If I were voting tonight, and I'm not sure if I am voting tonight.
Brian has recused himself.
Brian is recused, and so I'm voting tonight. I would say you should be able to judge from my comments how I am would be probably inclined to vote. So you may need to rethink your proposal.
We hear you, and we will withdraw it. And we will withdraw, I mean, we'd like to actually move forward with the special permit, or the dormer, if you would consider that. But I mean, we're not, I can address the parking. There's going to be one car that's parked in the garage, and then there are going to be two cars that are parked.
How are you going to park a car in the garage if it's going to be occupied?
If you look at the plan, you can see there's a
The garage,
It's a downstairs.
He's keeping the garage.
With upstairs.
Oh, okay, well, the power horse. The information has been pretty scarce.
I guess my concern about the parking is that this is not zoned as a residence. The assessor's map has it as 013, which is multiple use, primarily residential, but contains commercial on the first floor. So the question that presents to me is, do you meet the parking requirements for the commercial on the first floor plus the residential in the main building plus?
That first floor is a home office. There's no, as far as we're aware, that first floor, it's a one room that's about, what is it, probably 12 by 18. It's one room in a residential structure. There's no.
Are there any employees?
No.
Does the public come in?
No.
It's rented to someone that works there
No.
for their office
No,
space.
it's my office, it's my real estate.
It's your home office.
Well, yeah.
It's a real estate
Yeah,
office.
got it.
But I have
No,
another
no.
office too, that I'm not even there.
Right.
The real
Okay.
estate office has moved to 13 Elm Street, so that is just
Okay,
a home
okay.
office where.
Where people maybe work when they're home, if they.
That's the term, home
And so our understanding is that you don't require initial, that the code, the bylaw doesn't require an additional
No
parking spot
consumers
for that.
coming.
I mean, if we needed to, we could put many more, I mean, we could fit probably 5 cars. I mean, if you're allowing tandem parking, just as you pointed out, for residential, there's no rule against backing out. We could probably stuff 8 cars on that lot if we had to. But again, we're not looking to do that. All we're looking to do is to have 2 dwellings on one lot.
Crap.
Interesting. Do you know what your total lot coverage and
It's below
structures?
it's below the requirements.
Is it changing from current? No, you're building exact same foundation, exact same footprint.
Exactly the same. Footprint is not gonna change at all. And I mean, look, if you were inclined to approve it, we could obviously accept a condition that if somehow we were over the impervious, that we would go and we would rip up a portion of the driveway to get underneath, but,
Yeah, I mean,
Are you going to ask any public comment for this case?
we will get to it, yeah. Any more questions from the board?
I think so. Any more questions?
You covered the ones I had.
Okay, I'll open it up to public comments. Is there anybody in the room that would make comment? Ms. Gates, could you please say your
Maria
name?
Gates, Desmond School Street. Is the gentleman, and I suppose his wife, are they on Union Street where Dr. Basic's office?
Correct, yes.
House was?
Yep.
That place was always a business and a living family situation. And I know the back, they use it for different purposes, but all the area there, they have no ground with grass. They all have asphalt. He's not doing anything different, really. And that property, he's not building another structure. He's building on what it is to improve it, I suppose. And what is the problem with someone creating a space that is actually useful other than being a barn or a storage space? Because it's there.
yeah.
Second,
So
yeah.
So there.
I mean, again, I do, I mean, you guys are very focused on the bylaw, and I understand the point about the intent and purpose of the bylaw, but I really do think you have to be, you can't just say, okay, the town didn't approve this change. You have to look at the actual bylaw, and what does it do? What is it supposed to do in the general district? That's the area of town where we're supposed to have the most density, and we're asking for half of the units that we could potentially have in that district. And we're doing it for what I consider to be the very noble purpose of trying to preserve what I consider to be an important structure. I don't want to take that barn down. A lot of people would, I mean, a lot of the contractors would look at us and tell us, like, that the first thing they say, that should come down. There's just too much to deal with. Like, we don't want to do that. We want to preserve it. We think it's charming. We think it's historic. You know, we've talked in depth with the Historic District Commission about it. They want to keep it there. We've gone through iterations with them. We proposed a triangle window in front. They didn't really want that. So we're trying to do everything we can to save it, but we cannot invest the kind of money that it's going to take to save it if it can only be lived in by an employee. It's just not.
We continue to take, I have a hand raised on Zoom, Gary Gilbert.
Good evening. I can't help but offer a comment here. What you're dealing with is really an antiquated law. I think we're all pretty aware of that. And to my mind, I think there's no definable virtue in having an employee live in the second unit on a piece of property versus having a rental unit. It's just a concept. I'm not sure where it originated, probably pre-1950s or something. And you guys mentioned the intent of bylaws and town meeting vote, but you equally could rest your hat on, and you do have the right to evaluate what is substantially beneficial to the town. And I don't see this as having any substantial detriment to the town, his proposal of being able to have a second rental unit. There's already a strong, as we all know, a strongly established need for rental housing in town and a strong desire to keep the buildings that exist in our town and not have them torn down. This is an adaptive reuse. You could choose to make a decision, and your logic behind it could be that this is substantially beneficial to the town and it preserves existing buildings. So that's just my 2 cents for whatever it's worth. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Michael Gates, 2 Desmond Avenue. I more or less just wanted to second those comments where I appreciate that he's attempting to salvage and preserve an existing somewhat historic building in the town that I think adds to the character of the town, rather than basically eliminate it, put something else up. I think that should be taken into consideration. With the intent of the bylaw, maybe that's part of looking at the intent of the bylaw, whether it preserves part of the character of the town and those types of things.
Thank you.
Sure.
Again, I think this goes straight to, again, the fact that we're proposing to do less than what the bylaw could potentially allow. And that's why we think that what we're proposing is actually very consistent with the bylaw. I fully recognize the vote that happened last fall, but it was 60% in favor. But again, that's just not one of the factors that you look at. I think you have to look at, you kind of have to avoid looking at this vote or that vote and just looking at what does the bylaw say. And you've got a general district that can allow up to 4 units, and you have an applicant here who's proposing 2, much less, and that could even be a condition on the application.
I hear you, but the town bylaws are created by the town. So what's in the bylaws is the intent of the bylaws directed by the town. And if the town takes a vote that doesn't make this change in the bylaw, I don't think it makes sense for the ZBA to start making its own bylaws.
You're not.
We do.
No, it's the same exact, the town, we have a 10-foot side setback, but some towns allow people to go into that, just like we saw tonight. And those are new structures.
Okay, Mr. Zinn.
I just think that the challenge here obviously is what you've outlined, but there wouldn't be a zoning board of appeals if we weren't looking to, go for a variance or go for a special
make
permit.
Exceptions.
Pardon?
Make exceptions.
That's the
Right.
word, simple.
But
So that's why my point is that we are struggling here in town for housing. The applicant here has, I think very articulately stated the purpose, and although I'm not voting, I don't think
You
that,
shouldn't even be talking about this. You should be accusing yourself.
well, I've been sitting here, he talks all the time.
He doesn't recuse himself.
Fine, I'm
I
done.
have to recuse myself.
I'm done.
I have a question though.
I think that,
Go down, please.
Could you make that point for me?
I think that I don't see any reason why this property is any different from every other property in the town that has a detached accessory structure that wants to make it available for rental. That and every other property in the general district, which by right can create 3 units in the existing structure. I just don't see that this is a unique enough situation for us to grant a variance. That's supposed to be on a per lot basis where it's something different than all the other lots in the district, and I just don't see that we have that here. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, I'm not trying to change the subject, because I think we've pretty well covered your first one. But I've been puzzling here. I'm looking at the drawings you submitted.
Sure.
By Bruker Design. Drawing A1.0 and drawing A1.0. There are 2 drawings.
There's actually 4.
Oh, yeah, there's multiple copies.
Oh, you know, there might have been an extra. There might have been an extra one of the identical drawing that was.
One shows 2 cars parked inside the structure. The other shows 1 car parked inside the structure and a bedroom. Which is it?
I think that the second page we have, Jim,
Yeah.
is the revised second floor plan,
Correct.
Well, I'm looking at the first floor plan.
okay?
I'm only looking at first floor.
Both of the first floor plans that I see here, A1.0.
It's only 1 car.
There's 1 car in one and 2 cars in the other.
Excuse, that please disregard that third one was a prior iteration, the last
The
page.
last page
That was part of our original
Oh, I see
proposal.
what
has
you're
a
saying.
different way around.
Yeah, so which one is it?
Disregard the third page, there's 1 car, there'll be 1 car parked in the body.
So that was the 7/20/16 iteration. The one on top was revised on, the second one.
They both have the same date.
No, the first one has the date of 7/22.
7/20 and the
It
other
all says
7/20.
16.
The original one has the 2/16.
So the 2 cars on that first floor is not that's not correct.
Disregard, right, it's gonna be 1 car.
That's the 2/16. See, this is the one, this says
My apologies, that got slid in there.
2016, and it has the 2 cars.
Don't they all say 16?
No.
7/22, 16?
No, they have to look in the revision column.
7/22/16.
16
It's later,
though.
but it's later than 7/20. So
True.
it was
Some of these aren't
revised
even
and then it
dated.
shows 1 car.
But 16 is still 8 years
Yes.
ago.
Oh, yeah. And this, I believe, these 2, I believe, are duplicates.
Let's kill another tree.
Sorry, fill out a trees.
So the last page is a throwaway.
Yeah, and the next to last page is a duplicate of the one ahead of it.
Okay.
So there's only one A10.
Huh.
Correct.
And then there's this page with no date, no nothing on it.
Right, that's the new plan, that shows the second floor layout that will accompany that.
Which is a revision of the drawing.
Right, correct.
And then the first page is elevations with the drawing. So.
So we're looking for a special permit on the dormer and a variance on the
We're
parking
looking
spaces,
for-
living quarters, and lot lines.
A whole new special permit, including what we issued before, plus the dormer.
Right.
And a variance on the parking and a variance on the employee. And I don't see,
Why is there property lines?
I don't see the reason for a variance on the parking. That garage space was there pre-zoning.
Right, but if we'd be changing the use, someone could argue that we would need to obtain a variance to legalize it. And I just didn't want there to be any question in the future if we go to finance or sell the property. And that parking space, like we said, that parking space may be the most long-standing parking space in all of town. And we don't want to lose it.
Okay.
So essentially, the exact same proposal from 2 years ago with the dormer.
Except we're gonna add total coverage by structures and impervious surface shall not exceed 70%. That's fine.
And and it's not an employee.
The occupation of the residence is restricted to employees of the owner-occupied property. That was in the
We're gonna
original.
strike that.
No, we didn't, because that was in the original special permit. And then if that is gonna be changed, that's a separate variance.
The original special permit's already lapsed, so we don't
Right.
really have to do anything with the terms of the original one. We can just ignore it like it never even existed.
Right.
So you don't even have to leave in the whatever about the employee. You can
Yes,
just-
because that's a variance.
I know it's a separate variance, but I'm just saying you don't need it in the special permit
Well,
part.
I'm not willing to take it out of the special permit, maybe other people are. I'd rather have the vote.
And just to clarify, so your basis for not wanting to take it out is that you believe it would violate the intent of the bylaw? Is that?
Because the original special permit you asked for was for an employee of the owner occupied property.
Right, but irrespective of the original special permit, I'm asking, we asked for a variance. And
That's
It's a separate thing.
It's separate.
Right, so I was trying to separate them and talk about the different standards for the special permit. I didn't really
Right.
succeed, but I was trying to sort of
Yeah.
make a separation here between
Okay.
what we're considering on special permit versus variance and the standards for the two. Sorry
So
if that
under the
was
special
confusing.
permit, it has to be restricted to employees of the property
Correct.
owner.
Correct.
Under the current bylaws.
Correct. We ran into the same thing at 39 Central.
It's tougher.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's agreed to withdraw the variance for,
Yeah, I would withdraw without any kind of prejudice that request for
Yeah.
variance, so we'll deal solely with the special permit elements.
For the dormer.
right. To be able to reconstruct
The barn with the
the
dormer.
barn with the dormers, with the dormer.
So the question really boils down to, is that substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than what exists today?
But it's kind of like a chicken and the egg situation, really, because you can't really consider, like, you're constructing a dormer, right, that's all fine and good, but there's a purpose behind doing that, and it's to let another family or person live there, which, right, like, you're not just putting a dormer onto a barn,
Right,
like,
it's-
because
no,
of
no.
it, like,
The whole special
Has to go
permit was to make a residential unit.
right.
Under the original spec, the entire barn is gonna be essentially ripped apart and reconstructed.
Yeah,
That was,
right.
back then, that's the same thing that's gonna happen
Yeah.
now, if we can go forward.
You don't need to wait. You've already,
Are you really, you're not leaving, you're
No,
gonna,
you pretty much told me I'm not replying.
for this
There's
act.
one more. I think you hurt his feelings.
So the original special permit was requesting to take an existing non-conforming accessory barn and make it into living quarters, family living quarters for an employee of the owner occupied property.
But that's lapsed.
That's lapsed. But we can't issue a special permit unless we restrict it to
Right,
living quarters for an employee.
exactly, so it's intertwined
Right,
with the variance.
whereas the variance is separate.
Yeah.
Okay, are we ready to close the public hearing?
Yes.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second?
In favor, Sean,
Yes.
Kathy,
Approve.
Yes.
Rob, Jim,
Yes.
Sarah votes yes, okay. Now we're into deliberation, are we through deliberating?
I don't know. Are we
I
ready
think
to
we've been doing that
deliberate,
all
guys?
along. Yeah.
So are people in favor of issuing a special permit to renovate the non-conforming accessory barn in the family living quarters for an employee of the owner occupied property? Based on a finding that is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what it was issued on last time, I don't see a problem reissuing it on that again.
Okay,
And if they wanna add a dormer to the barn, I don't have a problem.
okay.
Legally, I think it's fine and I don't have a problem. I'm not sure practically, like, where that gets anyone, because they've said it's financially infeasible
That's
for
what
that's,
they
I guess
want.
that's
That's
their,
what he said.
yeah.
Very well may not happen.
Right.
We're here, we paid for plans, I don't think it's, I mean, we just, I'll have to continue working on it with my finance guys, it's,
It is what it
it's
is.
a tough revision to try to get over.
Yeah, it is.
You know, we debate, it's an interesting bylaw provision.
Well, and the zoning board is the one that asked him.
Yeah, I think your comment, I think your comment at the meeting was that it makes absolutely no sense to require everybody to be stuffed in one house when you
Right, I
separate it.
agree.
We don't I don't disagree.
I don't even know that it's enforceable, but I'm not gonna go there, that's not. If somebody were to appeal any of these things, we would probably not pursue it. We're not trying to litigate our way to get a result here, we're trying to work with the board to do something that makes sense.
Since the original special permit expired, did you make a new application?
This
The one that I just
is
submitted.
the new application.
Hmm?
This is the new
Did you pay
application.
another fee?
Well, he paid the $1,000
Oh,
We
for
paid
this
1,000.
application.
for this one?
Yeah.
Which is for the
Okay.
special permit.
Because I don't have that.
Oh, you don't have the cover sheet?
No.
Yes. We did pay $1,000, we paid $1,000, which is part of the reason why we'd like to just proceed.
Not pay another.
And that was to modify a special permit by adding a dormer.
dormer.
Yeah.
And we're saying, well, he can't modify it, we need to issue a new special permit, but the fee's the same whether it's a modification or
Right.
new, so.
All we can really do is issue a special permit to allow the dormer.
With an employee
No,
living there.
and all of the stuff we originally approved with the special permit.
Just change
He's,
the date.
he submitted all of the plans to us.
Yeah.
That includes the changes with the dormer, so this is the original stuff we received,
Mm-hmm.
plus the dormer piece, this revision to the second floor.
And he's accepted a condition of not going over
Yeah.
lot coverage and impervious surfaces, even though he hasn't specified that in his application, which is okay with me if.
Why would you go to all that trouble of putting all that living space in up there if you can't rent it out
It's for an employee of,
for an employee only?
right, and that's what's in the
We
bylaw.
also may use it ourselves, which we're also allowed to do. We can use it ourselves for.
You can move your
Yes,
home
you
office
can.
there.
You can have family in there, yeah.
I mean, what the Zegers do is their own
Yeah.
concern.
They can move up back and rent the front.
You've been rolling down
Okay,
all your
are we
life.
good with moving forward on special permit?
There's that.
Yeah, and we're gonna strike, he's gonna withdraw the variance.
Because if he doesn't and we don't vote for it, then we can't move back for 2 years, whereas if he withdraws it, and
And
the town
for-
changes the rules.
For an occupancy permit, there will have to be an I think we've discussed this before, they're gonna have to see like an employee, I'm not saying.
No, they don't ask for that.
They don't ask for an employee contract, right?
No, that was the problem, we had the 31 setback. The one that moved in, and they said they were
That's
gonna
right.
get an employment contract.
That's right.
So I can do it.
Okay.
Okay, I move to approve the application of Adam and Cynthia Zager for a new special permit since the previous special permit expired without commencing construction and cannot be modified under sections 5.0, 7.2, 12.5 of the zoning bylaw, and other relief as may be necessary to renovate, including the addition of a dormer, an existing non-conforming accessory barn into family living quarters for an employee of the owner-occupied property at 21 Union Street, Assessors Map number 45, Lot number 12 in District G, filed with the town clerk on April 23rd, 2024, based on a finding that the proposed use is in harmony with the purpose and intent of the bylaw. The proposed renovation into a residence will not be substantially more detrimental or injurious to the neighborhood in which it is located than the existing non-conforming structure, and all conditions under section 12.5.2 of the zoning bylaw for the grant of a special permit have been met based on the following conditions. The renovations are completed substantially as depicted in Exhibit A of the application, elevations, new second floor plan layout, A10 proposed floor plans prepared by Brooker Design LLC, dated July 14th, 2016, revised 7/22/16, excluding the second floor portion, which was modified as depicted in the new second floor layout plan above. Occupation of the residence is restricted to employees of the property owner. Sufficient off-street parking is provided pursuant to section 6 of the zoning bylaw. Total coverage by structures and impervious surface shall not exceed 70%. Okay,
That's okay.
do I have a second?
A second.
Sean seconds. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Sean?
Approved.
Catherine?
Approve.
Jim?
Approved.
Rob?
Approved.
And Sarah approves. Sean seconds. Okay. Now you want a variance for the parking in that one.
Correct, so that the parking space in the barn can be located within 5 feet of the lot line. That's the way to move it.
Are people good with that?
I am.
Okay. I further move to approve the application of Adam and Cynthia Zager for a variance under section 6.1 and 12.3.3 of the zoning bylaw, and other relief as may be necessary to allow parking in the driveway and the garage space within the existing non-conforming barn, which encroach into the 5 feet parking side setback, based on a finding that owing to circumstances relating to the shape of the land, especially affecting such land and structure, but not generally affecting the zoning district in which it is located, a literal enforcement of the provisions of this bylaw would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the applicants, and that the desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good, without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent or purpose of the bylaw, based on the following condition: a minimum of 3 off-street parking spaces, 9 by 18, must be provided. Do I have a second?
Second.
Sean seconds. Any discussion? Sean?
Approved.
Catherine?
Approve.
Jim?
Approved.
Rob?
Approved.
And Sarah approves. Okay, now, with the consent of the applicant, I move to withdraw without prejudice the portion of the application of Adam and Cynthia Zager for a variance under sections 4.3 and 12.3.3 of the zoning bylaw, and other relief as may be necessary to allow the renovated barn to be occupied by persons not employed by the property owner. Do I have a second?
Second.
Sean seconds. Vote. Sean?
Approve.
Catherine?
Approve.
Rob?
Approve.
Jim?
Approve.
And Sarah approves. I'll write this decision since nobody seems to be pretty excited about writing. Who would like to review?
I'll review it again if you
John
like.
will review. You guys are off the hook.
Something really exciting.
We're gonna go drinking next time you guys have a meeting.
We'll see you at town meeting.
You make public comment.
Well, I mean, we're
I'm
gonna
gonna
have,
need you to sign this before you escape.
we're gonna have to figure out some way.
I'm escaping?
We agree.
It probably needs to be presented differently. Sorry, I had to add in on the crap.
Oh, the crap.
Right, thank you.
Just where it says signed, that second line.
Yep. Both of our signatures, or just not?
If she would like to sign it too.
Thank you,
All right,
guys.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you
I
for your
know.
presentation.
Congratulations on finishing your terms.
Have a good night.
Appreciate it.
Great.
Okay. Our last one, if Gary's still awake. Bless you.
I think so.
Okay.
I doubt it.
Go ahead.
11 Magnolia Ave. I will open the public hearing for the application of Gary Gilbert for a variance under sections 5.3, 5.6, and 12.33 of the zoning bylaw and to other relief as may be necessary to construct a 12-foot by 30-foot tool shed which will encroach into the front and side setback at 11 Magnolia Avenue, Assessors Map number 5, lot number 38 in District C, filed with the town clerk on May 13, 2024. Mr. Gilbert, are you still awake to present your application?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
I'm not awake to listen to it.
Right.
Should I, can I share my screen so we can look at some of the submitted drawings? Hello?
Yeah, she's working on it, I
Yep, you should
think.
be all set.
Okay, if you don't hear me briefly in this, sometimes I've lost listening to you because of the storm going on, but it comes back.
There's
a
storm
storm
going on?
It's been lightning this whole time.
Oh, we're so oblivious here.
God, did you bring it on?
No.
I can't share a screen, I don't have permission.
Should have grabbed the jacket.
Okay, I think something just popped up. Okay, great.
Yeah, I must have hit the no instead of the yes to confirm.
All right, can you see this site plan?
Yes.
Okay, I'll be as brief as I can. It's not that late, but I think my site is a classic site that has clear hardships due to topography, which is the stream, which is why we bought the property, because we love it, and the zoning lot setbacks, as well as septic component setbacks. Originally, 22 years ago when I moved here, I got a variance to add an addition to the house, which is what this illustration is from. the left side of the site is south, so the addition was built towards the street or to the west, just for orientation. And it was quite clear to the zoning board, who unanimously voted to give us this, the variance to encroach upon the front yard setback, because the streams to the east of the building, we couldn't build there, and the zoning setbacks, lot line setbacks are to the north, as well as the driveway. And the septic component setbacks were to the south. Those pink circles are the septic tank and the pump station, etc. Let me see if I can go to the next. There. So the existing garden shed, can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay, the existing garden shed sits halfway over the setback for the leaching field. And the new proposed shed, which I'm trying to get to now, the new proposed shed is just an unheated shed that's bigger, but it has the reason for its size is the program, which is I want to house a 22-foot wooden kayak I built by hand that needs to be kept dry instead of being under my deck. 3 other kayaks, and then snow blowers, an antique device, lawnmowers, and shelving units for tools and supplies. So that's how we arrived at the size of this. It overlaps or cantilevers over the septic setback slightly, which is allowed. You're allowed to do that according to the state septic laws. And it's pushed tight up against the existing fence. The southern edge of it is up tight against the fence. But it's built not. I'm not proposing to build it deeper into the side yard setback. I pushed up against the fence to minimize how much it sticks over the 30-foot no disturb zone for the stream, and I didn't want to go push it up, open up the fence and go deeper into the side yard setback, because this seems like a more logical siting for the structure. I believe, globally speaking, side yard setbacks are important, much more so in districts A and B, but they become less relevant on larger lots which have topographic and site constraints. And especially when you're adjacent an unbuildable woodlands portion of my neighbor's property. His house is on the other side of the stream, and these are just woodlands to his west, to the south of my property. So in this case, I'm not proposing to go closer to the lot line, which is fully 15 feet away from the corner of the one corner of the shed. I just merely want to do what makes sense in terms of land use and just a logical siting of the shed, as well as architectural sense. I believe this is a very logical location for a garden shed. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody on the board have questions? I think for the people who didn't make the site visit, it was clear that there was a fence there and that there was a stream the other side of the fence between his house and the neighbor's house through the setback. And a large leaching field, that sort of thing. So there wasn't a lot of space, from what I could tell. Any member of the public wish to make a comment on this application? There's nobody left on Zoom. I don't think.
Quit.
Can you stop sharing your screen for a second?
Absolutely, yeah.
Does anybody on Zoom wish to speak on this application? If so, please raise your hand. No. Okay. We ready to close the public hearing? I move to close the public hearing. Do I have a second? Catherine seconds. All in favor?
Approve.
Yes, okay.
I'm not voting, am I?
board deliberations.
No.
Yeah, so, you can't say anything.
He's not recusing himself so he can talk. It's only if you recuse yourself you can't
Oh, see, I
talk.
didn't understand that. Where are your Robert's rules?
You had to go sit in the audience and make a comment as a member of the public if you recuse yourself, like Sarah did.
Well, why didn't you throw me out?
Then I would have called on you.
Okay.
Lord.
Excuse me, Sarah.
Yeah,
There is one, I hate to admit this being an architect, but the section drawing I gave you shows a landing and a slight ramp. My site plan doesn't show that, so in making your decision, if you might make additional comment that this would include a landing and ramp to the north of the structure, because it being built on piers, concrete piers, it's up above the soil of it, so we need to be able to get up into it.
yeah. Okay. Okay. I move to approve the application of Gary Gilbert for a variance under sections 5.3, 5.6, and 12.3.3 of the zoning bylaw, and other relief as may be necessary to construct a 12-foot by 30-foot tool shed containing a landing and a ramp, which encroaches into the front setback 1 foot and into the side setback 4 feet, 11 Magnolia Avenue, Assessors Map number 5, Lot number 38 in District C, filed with the town clerk on May 13, 2024, based on a finding that the location of the proposed tool shed, owing to circumstances relating to the shape and topography of the land, and the requirement to meet septic system and stream buffer setback requirements, especially affecting such land and structure, but not generally affecting the zoning district in which it is located, a literal enforcement of the provisions of the bylaw would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, and the desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent or purpose of the bylaw based on the following conditions. The tool shed is located as depicted on the partial site plan, new, prepared by Gary Gilbert and included in the application filed with the town clerk on May 13, 2024. The tool shed is constructed substantially in accordance with the plan, elevation, framing detail prepared by Gary Gilbert, dated 5/12/24. Do I have a second?
Second.
Rob. Any discussion? Vote. Sean?
Approved.
Ryan?
Approved.
Catherine?
Approve.
Rob? And Sarah approves.
Time to go.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll write this.
Yeah.
I'll write it, who wants to review it?
Pretty soon the power will go on.
I'll review it.
John will review it. Okay.
The only question I have
Yeah.
is, and perhaps Mr. Gilbert at some point, it seems counterintuitive to try to keep a kayak dry. I just don't understand.
Oh, during the winter, so it doesn't get snow in it. Okay. Okay. Okay, now we move on to administrative matters.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gary. We have meeting minutes from January 17th, 2024, February 21st, 2024, and March 20th, 2024. I reviewed these and Catherine has made amendments today, has submitted some minor amendments today. So I'll make a motion to approve those 3 minutes as amended by Catherine. Do I have a second?
Second. You like it?
I guess everyone loves my amendments.
All in favor?
I approve, yes.
Okay.
I approve my own amendments.
Okay. We'll do that.
We can't leave, we have to remain sheltered for 30 minutes.
Okay.
Shut up, it's like Ohio, where I grew up with tornado warnings. We better go in the basement.
And there's, well, the other administrative matters is that we have 2 new members. Georgia Pendergast and Linda Ringquist.
Diane Lindquist.
Diane, oh God, thank you, Diane Lindquist. I'm gonna call her Linda forever.
Why?
I don't know, I
Who'd you
decided
grow up
her
with?
name was Linda.
You went to school with someone named Linda. No, it's Diane.
Diane,
It's so funny.
yeah. And they have been appointed by the select board effective July 1st,
You're welcome.
2024. So I'm hoping that Brian and Catherine will send Debbie Powers an email.
Sure.
Or
Just
resigning?
confirming that you're resigning as of 6/30/2024.
Could you add my name to
No. With that, I make, and I want to thank you guys. 'Cause
I just want to know where my chair is.
you did a really good job, and we're really gonna miss you.
Here, take this one.
And we wish you were staying on.
Might come back. My kids are older. Don't count me out, but for now,
Okay, good.
I'm out for a while.
We'll count on it.
I want to get my.
Before you close your meeting, can I add something, because I'm mistaken, I think it should be corrected
No,
for your records, because it's wrong.
feel free to send me an email.
Yeah, send a letter or an email for the
is gonna
record.
work for it.
You can send an email or letter for the
Mr. Dyer
record.
misspoke about
You can
our-
send an email or letter for the record.
Send an email to Gail Hunter.
Yeah. It'll get put
And
in the.
what?
Who's that?
She's at town hall. It's Hunter G at.
She does our minutes, she's our
She's-
administrative.
she's the
She'll put it in as part of the record.
She's the clerk for these
Yeah.
ZBA.
She'll notate it in the minutes.
But he said our property encroaches theirs, and we never did that.
Okay, well, your building's in the setback.
But we are, the house is 250 years old.
I know, but it just, no.
It has been there
All right,
forever.
on three, let's break. 1, 2, 3.
And it was 5 acres.
Oh, you guys are way too happy about getting on.
In the long run.
I have no